Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you so much for joining us today for Learn to Draw and Paint Flowers with John Muir Laws. We're so excited to have you here today. I personally love flowers, so it was kind of a selfish choice to suggest to Jack that we have a class on flowers, and it's been a thrill to see how many other people also love flowers. So, yay flowers! Really excited about today. My name is Beth Kelly Galogly, and I'm the founding director of the Wild Wonder Foundation, which is dedicated to encouraging nature connection and conservation through attention, curiosity, art, science, and community. You can learn more about our work at wildwonder.org. I'm about to hand it over to today's teacher, John Muir Laws, aka Jack, who is generously donating his time to teach this class today. Thank you, Jack. Jack is a principal leader and innovator of the worldwide nature journaling movement and the co-founder of the Wild Wonder Foundation. An award-winning naturalist, artist, scientist, and educator, Jack has dedicated 4 decades of his life to connecting people to nature through art and science. He is the author of several beloved books, including The Laws Guide to Nature Drawing and Journaling and The Laws Guide to Drawing Birds. Jack, we're so grateful to you for being here today. This class is a fundraiser for Wild Wonder Foundation, and all funds raised support our many free and low-cost resources that help people connect with nature. A big thanks also to Kate Ryder, a Wild Wonder volunteer who is helping backstage today. Thank you, Kate. And thanks to all of you for your support and for helping share the joy of nature journaling with others through your generosity. A few notes before we begin. This is a 2-hour webinar, and it is being recorded. Your mic and camera are off, the chat is disabled, and please use the Q&A feature for your questions during the presentation, and we will get to as many questions as we can. We're so happy you're here, and thank you for sharing your joy of drawing and connecting with nature, with the community.
This is going to be, as sort of winter progresses, I start jonesing for flowers. I really want me some flowers. And then springtime pops up and there they are again. And kind of getting used to kind of going out and getting to know the wildflowers that grow in wherever you live. It's sort of like seeing old friends again. And you're just like, oh, I remember you. Sometimes we don't remember the names, and that's okay. The names aren't important, but it'll sort of take you back to this, like, I was actually with my dad when we found this wildflower. Like these wildflowers will connect you with your past, and it's just sort of a wonderful reminder that the world keeps spinning around and things keep on going. And as we kind of come through the darkness of winter, all of a sudden there are these colorful explosions everywhere. And what a joy it is to be on a planet with flowers. The bees think so too. So do the hummingbirds. All right. So here's what I'd like to do. There are 4 big ideas that I want to share that are going to make a big difference with your being able to draw the wildflowers that you see. And this is part of it is going to be about how you think about these flowers, and then part of it is going to be how you actually make your marks on the paper. So if you've got those 4 things in your brain and in your repertoire of what you do, I think you're going to find that drawing the wildflowers that you see just gets a whole lot easier. So um, I am, all right. Here are, oh, the little owl is kind of in the way there, but that's okay. So there are 4 things that I want to do today. So one of them is I want to look at foreshortening flowers and sort of thinking about how the dimensions of what we see changes as the object we're looking at is at different angles. And this is initially it is kind of counterintuitive. Um, we also want to take a look at how to foreshorten flowers that are cone shaped. So some flowers that you see, you're going to see little flowers that are kind of cone shaped, and some flowers that you see The petals are kind of roughly in a flat plane. So having a little paper model that you can play with that helps you visualize these things is very, very helpful. Another thing that I want to do is to take a look at what I'm going to call the X problem. The X problem. There are certain petals that are on the that are on the X, and I'll explain what that is. That confuse our drawings. And knowing that these are challenge spots allows you just to double check and kind of look there and kind of like, oh, I see what's on the X. And and then you can get that into your picture. There's and the final thing that the owl is hiding is what I'm going to call putting the pieces together and finding the through line. So putting the pieces together and finding the through line. If you're drawing things that are curving and twisting, this is a really useful strategy. With all these things together, you're going to find that the wildflowers that pop up in front of you are a lot more cooperative. So let's let's go there now. Um, all right, a uh, this is a little diagram that I made of a five-petaled flower. And what I'm doing is I am tilting it at different angles. So as you see that oval getting compressed, that is me tilting the object. For this, the physical demonstration of this is, here we go. So here's my flower, and I want you to notice that these petals are all the same shape. But all I have to do is hold it at an angle like this. I'm going to turn it so that there's one's pointing up. And what you notice is that the ones that are here, actually, I'm going to do it this way so it's in the sun, right? The petal that's over here on the side, notice that these ones where my fingers are, right here where my fingers are, those ones, watch it get skinny. See how it gets skinny? So full shape, now they get skinny. And also notice the ones here and here at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. As I tilt it, whip, those ones don't get skinny. They keep their weight, but they don't seem as pointy, right? So uh, as a flower is tilting, um, if I can keep that in mind, that the ones on the sides get skinny, and the ones here are going to keep their width. They don't get wider. They're going to keep their width, but they seem shorter, and that makes them look less pointy. That's going to be really, really helpful for drawing a bunch of flowers. So this trick alone helps me be able to draw flowers. So what I'll do is I start to draw a flower. If I can see that, if I can see the circle by connecting the tips out here, then I'm going to just draw some crosshairs through it. That gives me the middle of my flower there. This little oval now, see a circle, oval, circle, ellipse. All right, this little ellipse is going to show me the length of the different petals that I have. So um, if I've got one petal that is coming out here, that is going to be, now it's full length, but it looks shorter. There's one that's out here that gets skinny, and being skinny also means it's going to get more pointy. And the more I ellipse it, the pointier it is going to get. And then somebody who's in the middle, say between those two places, it's going to be, well, something between those two extremes. Right? So out here, skinny and pointy. Out here, it is shorter and it's got its full length, and this is in between. So that's the first obvious thing. The thing that's not as obvious is that the same thing is going to happen with the shapes of the air between our flowers. So notice here that the gap between these two is the same size as the gap between these two. And let's look at what happens when we tilt it. All right. This gap here stays wide. This gap here, now I'm going to put my fingers on the gap here. All right, that gap gets skinny. And that's something that confuses a lot of people. Initially, what I got when I was starting to figure this out is I could see this change in the petals because it was a real thing in front of me, but I wasn't looking at the negative shapes between those petals. The same thing is going to happen with those negative shapes between the petals. So if I'm going to now take this this flower and I'm going to rotate it. A couple of little ticks there. And um, take a look at how the closer a gap is to the top or the bottom, the bigger it is. But gaps that are more on the sides get smaller. Isn't that interesting? It's real when my problem is that when I'm drawing something like this, that what my brain wants to do is if it says if your petals are all even sizes, make them all the same. So, my mental template is trying to make me make the petals have the same amount of pointiness, make the petals have the same spacing between them. I'm trying to get the symmetry that I see here when I'm looking at it like that. But that's not what I'm going to see. See, for me, that was first an oh no, then an aha. And it's really going to help you be able to draw your flowers. So now what you're going to be doing is you're going to be looking at, you're expecting the ones on the sides, things get skinny, right? Ones, whether it's a negative space or whether it's a petal pointing out that way. And you're expecting the ones that are in your sort of your up-down plane. You're expecting that things are going to get shorter, but they're going to look sometimes that makes them optically look wider. They're not getting wider. But knowing this is a big deal. So I can take this little, let's go back to this little model here. I found it really instructive to kind of study this little diagram. And then what I did is I took the that middle row, and you can also just take it and tilt it at any angle you want. So if you go the third row down, what I've done on the bottom row is just taken the third row down and turned those at all sorts of goofy angles. So between tilting the ellipse any way you want and spinning the flower around inside the ellipse, you can get all of these really cool results. So let's take a look at how this might work on a drawing that we want to do. So here is a California poppy, and here is a California poppy, and we are um, we're going to draw this from the top view. And what I want folks to notice is that the outside edge of this makes a circle. And then what we're going to do is we're going to draw our crosshairs through it. Right. So, hold on a second. I am going to behind the scenes I'm going to try to make an adjustment. And I just made it worse. Um, I'm sorry, folks. I tried to get clever and tried to do a few new things on my back end to make the show easier for everybody to see. And I think I just sort of made it a little bit more confusing. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have to flop back and forth between a couple of screens. So here we go. Let's go to the document camera. That poppy started off as a circle. And I like to sort of my initial framing is a circle with crosshairs through it. Um, these crosshairs, these lines that I make, can either be the spaces between petals. They can also be um, they can also be um, the points of a petal. So if I were, you know, drawing something with four, perhaps, a mustard, I could get myself four petals. But when I'm drawing something that is, say, a California poppy with four broad petals, then each one of these lines, I'm going to think of those as not the middle of the petal. I'm going to think of that as the break between two of these petals. So that means I'm going to have one petal that is over here, and it's got another petal that is the middle of the petal will be here, come here, and then start to come down. And then I'm going to come up with my next petal and come down. And then I'm going to come up with my next petal and come down. Similarly, dot camera, keynote. I am going to try to make one more change. I've now got my dock camera showing, and I'm sorry for doing this on your time, but keynote, save. I think that might have fixed it. Yes. All right. So I can think of things with this sort of symmetry in this way. So this little sort of circle thing is it's useful. Let's add in a let's take a look at sort of a daisy type flower here, a composite. It's going to be the same way. And what I'm going to do is I am going to start with a circle. If I'm looking at something straight down, I start with a circle and I give myself those crosshairs between it. Each one of the is going to point to this center here. And so if there's a petal kind of coming in from here, I want to find a point on the outside edge. I want to find the point in the middle, and I'm going to either lightly draw or imagine a line between those, and that's going to be the axis of this petal. So then what I can do is I just look for another one that's on top. There's one that's on top that's over here. Right here. Here's one. Here's one that's on top. So I am going to bring this one. And what I usually do is I just start with whatever petals seem to be. There's one on top here. Whatever petals are on top. Where is another petal on top? There's a petal on top that's over here that sort of has a twist to it. And then there's another one here. And eventually I'm going to get all the petals that are kind of slow to the top of it. Kind of. Eventually I'm going to get all the ones that are on top. And I'm going to start to tuck them underneath each other. So then this next one, if you do the ones that are on top first, then you know where to stop drawing the tucking ones. And if you notice that I made like this petal here, I've got too much of a gap here. Something that's nice about real flowers is that they have um, on these sort of on composites like this, it's not they could there's it's you look at five different flowers, they will each have flowers coming, these little petals, which are technically flowers, coming out from slightly different locations. So you've actually got a lot of wiggle room in how you place these ones. But you do want to get the right approximate number. So this isn't going to bother me. And then we have our inner disc flowers. Each one of these little bumps on the inside here is also a little flower. And so that circle helps me be able to kind of get their geometry. Let's try one more. Again, this one is an evening primrose that you can find. They will start to bloom in the late evening. Sometimes you still find them in bloom in the morning. Here I've got flowers that are a um, a little bit narrower so you can see the gaps between them. And so you can decide for yourself whether you want to use here I'm kind of making a heavier cross, a wider kind of cross mark between them. And then my petals will come out from that, each making a little heart shape. And so I'm going to indicate for myself sort of where the middle of this is going to be, somewhere around there. And so I come up over a little divot in the middle. And that's going to allow me, this next one is looking less hearty. Actually, this side should be straighter. Yeah, okay. This one's straighter. And then more of a jagged edge on top. The pistil, and these makes this really interesting cross shape. And I continue that around the flower. So again, this is what I see when I am taking a flower that is flat and I'm rotating it. But things get really interesting if you have a a flower that is um, cone shaped. So if you I'm going to show you how to take your little flower model if you got one of these things from the online. Now, if you didn't print the thing out, don't worry, you're not behind the curve or anything. You'll still be able to follow along with all of this because I'll be holding one up on the screen when we're going to be drawing from it. But if you can make your own and kind of play with it, it's going to really help a lot. Here's what I've got. I've got my little flower, and I have made a cut in it from the outside edge down to the very center. So don't cut through the center, cut stopping right at the very center. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two sides, and overlap them so that when I overlap them, it forces it into a cone. And I'm going to overlap it so that it covers up two of my petals like that. Got a little piece of tape on the back. So I just took that and I covered that up. Now you've got a little paper model of this flower. Um, and or maybe this looks more like that. So you can do it so that you cover up two petals. You can do it so that you cover up one petal. You can make the cone steeper by covering up more petals. But let's go over to the document camera and notice what this does when you tilt it. I've got something here that's called the helping hands. It's something that my dad had on his, he used to tie flies for fly fishing. And, um, and this was his. And so I've got a little flower here. And when you look down at a cone-shaped flower from the top, this is going to look exactly the same way that, this is a cone-shaped flower, right? But you look at it from the top, there's no visual cue other than perhaps that shadow that we're seeing up in there. Um, that is really telling you that this is a cone-shaped flower. So in my drawing of it, if I were drawing a cone-shaped flower from this straight down view, it could be visually confusing to my viewer. And also somebody, it might not be, I wanted to be able to show the dimension in that. But notice how with this guy here, see the gray circle in the middle? Even when I tilt it, that gray circle is still halfway between here, halfway between here. There's the same amount of space here as there is here. Again, if I go back to this, you see that circle is still in the middle. Check out what happens if I tilt this. Isn't that weird? Right? So the circle, the middle, is now no longer in the middle. This outside edge is an ellipse. Just look at the outside edge. This sort of, here's my ellipse, but this little ellipse in the center is now closer to the top. And if I tilt it around like this, right, you can see that the petal that is right on top. Oh my. Look at that. Look at that thing. All right. This one is getting squished. This one, this one's definitely getting shorter up here. This one here, now when I mess around with this one and I tilt it, the 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 top and bottom ones are getting shorter. But here, this one's getting shorter. This one down here is actually getting longer because the distance from here to the edge is greater than the distance from the center to the edge. So this is, if I have it down here, you're seeing this, all of these petals actually at a foreshortened angle. That's not their full length. As I tilt it up more like that, you see that bottom petal actually grow in length because now you're seeing it flat, and that's actually its full length. Everyone else is foreshortened. But doesn't that look weird? Doesn't it look weird? Um, this is counterintuitive. This makes my brain itch. And so things that make my brain itch, I often draw wrong because my brain wants to correct it. My brain doesn't want that to be a petal coming towards me. But I have to, but by playing with something like this, it can really help me see what I am actually observing. The same is going to be true for the space between a petal. All right. The space between a petal down here. Okay, I get that. But look at this one up here. That's the right distance, but look at how that is. It's got its full width, but it's now super narrowed. The other thing, and we're going to be coming back to this in just a minute, I want everybody to notice the really weird counterintuitive shape of these two petals here. Don't those look like you drew them wrong? Right? We'll get to this when we get to the X problem, right? And we're going to solve this. We're going to figure out what is going on with these because this is a regularly observed thing in leaves and petals that people see all the time. But it is not intuitive to us, right? So here's just sort of the foreshadowing of the X problem. So what I will do is if I am here's kind of the for people who like models, right? As you rotate something that um, is a cone-shaped thing, the bottom of the cone will get closer to one side and further from the other, all the way until it disappears from your field of view. All right, so you can take it, you can tilt it, right? The bottom gets closer to the center, and as it starts to get, as that little point, see the little point in the middle? Put that right on the center. And then as you tilt more, you start to see the bottom of the petal here, but not in here. Right? So there's a lot going on here. We're going to have these little petals now coming up foreshortened on the side closest to us. So that's a lot going on a flower. Fortunately, this little mental model can help us understand the geometry of it. So here we go. Um, the If I make one that is a steeper cone, as I tilt it a little bit, it will um, the bottom drops more quickly. So if I am drawing that, let's I'm going to make kind of a couple quick kind of cone-shaped flower diagrams. The outside edges of the petals out here, that is always going to be an ellipse. So as I'm tilting it, that remains an ellipse. So if I'm looking at it straight down, it's a circle. I'm looking at it at an angle, it's an ellipse. And how far down, I'm going to put a little guideline here. How far down this do I see the cone? Well, that all depends on how steep the cone is. Because on something with a very steep cone, um, you can have a cone like this. You could also have a flower that is not as steep a cone. Both of those would be accurate. It just depends on what your flower is doing. So what I will do when I look at a flower is, let's go here to it. Right? What I do is I will, if it's a cone-shaped flower, I will close one eye. I close one eye and I look at it and I air draw. All right, here's the outer edge of your petals. Here's the outer edge of your petals. All right, air draw that. And then what I'm going to do is um, I'm going to then say, how far down is the bottom of your cone? So I'm not worried about the individual petals. Those will come in a minute. But first, what I'm doing is saying, what is the shape? What are the dimensions of this cone? The cone is going to be two things. It's going to be an ellipse, and it's going to be those two sides that could be going down far or coming down just a little bit. By the way, most of the flowers that I find are some form of a cone because even things that open all the way flat, they usually start like this and then they cone out until they're flat. So you're going to be seeing a lot of cones. I'm going to eat this arrow. Um, so let's let's kind of give ourselves that. So we've got diagrammatically, I'll give myself a cone. And then I look around this ring here and I say to myself, where on there are the tips of my petals? And what I'm expecting to see is that the tips of petals are going to be further apart in this section, and they'll be closer together over here. Because narrower, I'm foreshortening the negative spaces between things on the sides. So let's say I've got petal tips in here like this, and then ones on the side will be closer together. And it took me a while to kind of get comfortable not having all these things be symmetrical. Then I give myself little guidelines down to the bottom. And then I am going to start to draw in my petals, starting with the ones that are the closest to me. And on these, you will often find, we already talked about the X problem. Um, you will find things kind of relating to the X problem. We'll show you what the full X problem is in a minute. So this one here is really foreshortened. This one here a little bit less. This one over here, not really. This one is going to be, we're going to see it as broader. And these ones in the back, I I know where to, because I did these ones in the front first, I know where to stop drawing this one in the back because this one in the front is already there. If I make these lines here on the front ones a little bit heavier, they will pop into the foreground. So where there's a heavier line, your brain goes, oh, close. Where it's a light line, your brain goes far, near, far, right? So uh, also, if I throw a little more detail into these front ones, that will also pull them closer. Let's take a look now at um, let's see where it is. Keynote10.cam. There we are. Let's take a look at this, and let's do a quick little painting of this California poppy that we're seeing foreshortened here. I usually start my drawings with a non-photo blue pencil. I'm going to back up from this. Oh, wrong direction. All right, here's a non-photo blue pencil. And it allows me to draw a bunch of these little lines in a way that's really ghosted and pale. It's so pale that it doesn't show up on your camera, but it works for me. So I'm not going to use the pencil that I normally use to draw really, really light lines. Instead, I'm going to use another pencil just to sort of mimic what I would be doing with this so you can sort of see what I'm doing. And what I'm going to actually go in a step closer. So I give myself a little ellipse and it comes down. Here, I'm not going to go down to a point. I'm going to go down to a little flat. And my cup is full. Now, where are the tips of my petals? I've got one tip over here. I've got a tip over here. I've got a tip up in here, and I've got a tip down here. I'm going to start with the things that are the closest to me. And I have this sort of a general approach of if I've got things, some things are near and some things are far. What I do is I do the near ones first, and then I draw the far ones poking out from behind that. So I look at here, who's in front? Who's in front? And there's this petal that's in the middle, but if I look on the left-hand side, actually I see the edge of that other petal overlapping it. So I'm going to actually draw that side in first. I'm going to draw, comes up, and then it's going to come over with a wobbly line and back. And then on the other side here, who's in front? Oh, I probably could get away with drawing this other one up now. It's going to come here. It's going to come to a top in here. Notice I'm not putting in all the little jiggity jaggies yet. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go back down this way. I want to kind of, all these petals want to come back down to this same base here. What about over here? Well, I've got a little overlapping part here. It's going to come up to the top of my petal. It's going to come down. And I see that tucking down here. As you're thinking about these petals that kind of, you see part of it going down into this, you want to imagine it continuing down to the bottom here. Otherwise, it's possible to put in something at an angle that's not going to work. Or if I made it too steep like that, is that going to get down to here? Now, that edge of that petal, if I pulled the other ones off, it would be doing something like this. So as I'm drawing that in, I'm kind of going like, and we're going to drop down to the bottom of our flower. Now I have this side of this flower. It's going to come up. It's going to come over. And it's going to tuck behind this one. This little spot in here, let's just give it a little bit of diagrammatic love because this could be a really confusing part of the drawing. Because right here, I have the corner of this front petal, I have the edge of this back petal, all coming into the same place. So if I have, let's say, here's the front part of our petal coming up. All right, so this is, say, this edge of this petal here. If this other corner comes in like that, then what happens is our brain will take this straight line and continue it up. I want somebody to say that, oh no, what we actually have is we have one petal edge here, and there's another thing that is coming in behind it. So instead of following this line, I'm going to make sure that it is and they're very close in that photograph. But in my drawing, I'm going to move it a little bit off to the side here so that I don't have, I might help my viewer's brain follow this as a shape and then this is another shape tucking behind it. If one line comes down and it hits another line, that triple junction is very confusing. Instead, again, I want that. All right. Now I'm going to grab a graphite pencil and I'm going to start to play with this drawing. So I've given myself a little framework to work on. Now I can play with some of these lines and then I'll put some watercolor on top of that. So this is my closest petal. It's going to get some sort of a nice strong line comes up. It's going to go up here to this corner. And then it's kind of coming up and down. Got a little bit of jiggle in it. And it is starting to kind of come on down. And I'm going to put a few little contour lines into this just to help people sort of see, like, here's this rounding petal kind of coming up towards me here. Now I've got another petal that is over here on the side. Oh, actually, let's make this petal here kind of clearly overlapping. That'll be better. Unambiguous. Instead of kissing that little tangent there, those little places where the lines kiss, we call those tangent lines. And they're places where it's really easy to get confused. Here's the edge of this petal, and we're seeing it on the underside. There. So I've got that petal there. Now, where do I not want this back edge to hit it? Oh, actually, I think that back one is overlapping it, isn't it? Yes. Oh, so I'm going to have that back one overlap it. And then I don't want that I want that to come in here. So as these shapes are meeting each other, I really want to, before I get over to this side, what's going to happen here with this meeting of petals? That one's going to come down, and then we're going to come over sort of a wobbly edge here, big wobble. So I'll just sort of follow the wobble along the side and down here. And then on these wobbles, I'm going to suggest that there are little kind of inner edges. All of these little I want that back side coming in there. All right. On my real flower, this side comes in a little bit further. Okay. Now, if I throw in detail on the close side, that will pull this petal towards me. I'm going to not have a lot of detail on this back wall because that will push it further away. Poppies have this really interesting little disc structure that comes down here and it sits right underneath the flower.
Jack, quick question. Is that a mechanical pencil you're using?
Yeah, this is mechanical pencil. The reason it's kicking down such a dark lead is that I put 2B lead in it. I really like sort of drawing. If I'm going to sort of have one kind of pencil to use, I love it would be a 2B pencil.
Thank you so much.
Uh, it's a 0.7 millimeter twist erase pencil, and then I filled it up with 2B lead. I like these little pencils because they don't tend to break. They have a big eraser that is hiding in there, and that that works well for me. So there's a little poppy drawing. Now I'm just going to throw some watercolor on top of that. If I had done this with the non-photo blue pencil, these I wouldn't have to get in here and try to erase some of those little blue marks. The twist erase pencil also, I mean the copy non-photo blue pencil, that Prismacolor pencil that I showed you earlier, it also erases very easily. Not true of most colored pencils. All right, I'm going to just drop some color into this. And so here's the
Hi,
kind of,
Jack. Sorry, it's Kate. This is such awesome information. But I just wanted to let you know that we are at the halfway point. So, we should be taking a chance to stand up and stretch sometime
okay.
soon.
Why don't I'll just drop some watercolor on this and then let's all take a break. Thank you so much for that. With watercolor, I'm going to start with stuff that's really light, and then I can always make things darker. Let's go a little bit closer. There we are. So what colors do I want? That's New Gamboge. It's appearing a little bit darker on the screen. Maybe if I add some light. Yeah, didn't help too much. Um, this is Hansa Yellow Medium. And yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to initially grab some Hansa Yellow Medium and just to make this kind of a nice glowy shape, I'm going to put that in the background across the entire thing. Because it's the lightest value, stuff that I add on top of it will just have that yellow glowing through. Build that up a little bit. The brush that I'm using is a Pentel Aquash large water brush. And it's not putting too much water down. So these aren't big, big, big puddles. It means that this stuff will be dry fairly soon. And then I will be able to kind of go on with other layers. While that initial part is without even washing my brush here, I'm going to grab a little bit of this buff titanium paint here, and I am going to put some of that into the little disc. I'm going to grab a little bit of whatever's looking sort of pinkish here. That's probably some of the quinacridone magenta or quinacridone pink that I have up in there. And very often you'll see kind of pink kind of coming into these little discs. I'll grab some green. I like to have, I'll often use the slop in my mixing areas. I've got a special mixing area for greens, for blues and purples, for warm colors, for grays and browns. Um, and so I can just reach into that, especially if I've been doing a lot of drawing in an area, I'll already have accessible to me some of the colors of that place. And now this is probably dry enough that I can start to paint these other things in. I'm going to test two colors here. This is permanent orange. And then I also have quinacridone sienna. It's a little bit too brownish. I think maybe that permanent orange mixed with a little bit of the yellow that I have there already. That's better. All right. Now I'm going to make sure that I don't have too much water in my brush so I can test it on the side. I can make little marks. If I put those marks down and it was a big gabloof of water, then what I would do is just take my a little rag or my sock puppet and get rid of some of my paint, and then I'm ready to add more details. As I'm putting some paint in here, what I'm going to be doing is following the direction of the petal with my brush strokes. So here, let a little bit of that yellow show through. Pick up a little bit more paint on my brush. And then as I come back here, there's not much more paint on my brush, so it feels a little bit more pale. I think I want that a little bit more intense. Now most of the paint is off my brush. And give this back one just a few lines that are pointing down towards the bottom of the flower to say any kind of motion, any kind of, if you were on that little ski slope, you'd be sliding down that direction. I'm going to get a little bit, mix a bit of this magenta that's in here to make the deeper orange, and just drop that into some of the cracks down here. Maybe a little bit into that shadow. Then there's this cool little shadow edge in here. I see some shadow lines in here. I'm going to and again, all these lines are pointing down towards the bottom of my flower. Put a little shadow in here. I've got people will say, colors should be this shadow or that shadow. The best thing to do is to look at your real objects out there in nature and say to them, what are your shadows really doing? And with that, we are ready to take a walk, or ready to take a walk, ready to stand up and give ourselves a little bit of a stretch. And when we come back, I will show you one last little thing I might do on this with my white gel pen here. It's a fun little trick.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jack. So everyone, please stand up. Yes, one time, Jack, you showed us the hummingbird stretch, the hummingbird wing stretch. Remember that one? This is so good, folks. Kind of like the figure eight. You were saying it's so good for
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to be a hummingbird, this is a great way of kind of warming us. First, in order to kind of loosen up to be a hummingbird, take one of your wings and flap your other wing underneath it. See if you can kind of catch your elbow and then bring your paws forward. Just kind of lift them out like this, and you'll kind of, this is a great way of sort of stretching. You'll feel the stretch in your back there. So I'll kind of try to catch my elbow and I bring my elbows up. And I'm trying to just sort of stretch my upper back. If you want to be a hummingbird, then what you want to do is you're going to take this is your hand, your primary is attached to there. That's where your longest feathers are. You're going to fold your wing up like this. You're going to bring your wings down and in, sort of arch your back into that, and sort of push your back out like a little cat, right? So there you are. And then at the bottom of the stroke, they flip their hands up, their primaries up, and you're going to bring them back. So you're now, again, sort of opening up your chest. Back there, you are bringing them up and over. Oh. Now, if you start doing this fast enough, you'll actually lift off the floor. So give that a try. Do mine a little bit more slowly, but really, if you go fast enough, you
I
can.
love that. I love that. Awesome.
Shake out your tail feathers.
Woo! All right. Shake out. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jack. And folks are asking about your beautiful shirt. I put the place to find it in the chat. It's from a company called Morning Witch, like morning, noon, and night. Morning Witch. Yeah, so beautiful. It's 100% cotton. This is not an ad. They did not ask us to promote this, but isn't it gorgeous? Lots of flowers on there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's
And
get.
it's got in addition to the Luna moth, it's got these little rosy maples.
Oh, yes.
Little rosy maples.
Yes, Rosie Maple Moth.
Whoop, whoop.
Boop. We saw both of those at the Hog Island retreat last year, so
We
folks
did.
might
We
want
did
to.
on the same sheet.
Yes.
It was like somebody put a morning weight shirt up there.
Wasn't it nice?
It was
I will
nice.
put the information about this year's retreat at Hog Island, Maine, so folks can check that out if they like. And let's get back to class. Thank you.
All right. Are you dry? Yeah, you're mostly dry. I'm going to got a little hair dryer, and what I'm going to do is just make this a little bit drier. That's dry enough. Out in the sunshine, that happens really fast. But I'll just show you kind of a fun little trick that helps, that I do a bunch in my botanical illustrations. Because if you were looking at the edge of a petal here, you want somebody to visualize this as actually having thickness and being a side. So let's see, do I have a um, imagine that this is the petal. Do you see how you actually see the upper edge of the paper as a thing? You're seeing the thickness of that paper. So if I just had a black line, I would miss that there's a surface coming up here, there's a surface here, then there's another surface going down the other side. So I will get in here. This is a white pen. It's called a gel pen. And the uh, and you can do this also with a say a white Prismacolor pencil, but the gel pen gives you a little bit more of a crisp line. I'm going to just gel pens do tend to die quickly. Oh, you are not. Oh, it's still a little bit too damp. Hold on. I'm going to dry it in the sun more. So this is a jelly roll. It's a kind of gel pen. My favorite is the Signo Uniball white gel pen. And I'll see if these have been sitting in my drawer for a while, and I'm hoping that they still have. One is mostly dead. Come on, come on, come on. You can work with us here. Work with us here. Do you have anything left in you? This one it might have a little bit more. All right. Yeah. If what I used to do is I would buy a bunch of gel pens all at the same time. And because I thought, oh, they run out so fast, then I will have one when I need one. And then the whole pile would go out. Um, so I'm going to tap this a little bit with my finger to take off a little bit of that paint. Let's put a little bit of a lip on that. And you might be saying, but these little white lines are too harsh. They're too harsh. They feel like there's big white ink lines on your thing. Well, what you can do is they're also water soluble. So you can lighten them. I want to maybe lighten this over here. I'm going to just lightly bring a bunch of water across it. I think I'll grab a little bit of yellow paint and you can also tint them.
Could you scoot your paper just a little bit to the right? Yes, thank you so much.
So it just kind of gives me a little hint of that edge. And I think that I'm going to zoom back a little bit, gives you kind of a sense of some light kind of hitting some of those surfaces. All right, so there's a little happy poppy. Um, So we've looked at things that are kind of in a flat plane. We've looked at things that are in a cone plane. We're starting to see these weird shapes kind of coming in. Let me see if I can make this one make a weird shape. Yeah, there we go. If actually, I'm going to grab my helping hands here, and we can zoom in on so the way you won't see the tremor in my fingers. Yeah, look at this guy. Look at how this thick side, it's coming up and then starting at about here, bam, down into that. And this one is kind of coming around here and about here. It's going up with this long straight side to here. So this shape over here and that shape over there, boy, are they different. That is peculiar. Um, this will be the first time that I have tried to use this specific technology. Using new technology has not been successful for me in this class so far. But being an optimist, I'm going to see if we can make this work. All right, so here's a little leaf. And what I am going to do is I am going to take this leaf and I am going to rotate it around at a bunch of different angles. And so you didn't have to watch me copy and paste a bunch of things before you folks came. I did this. So sorry, I'm going to drop out of your field of view there. And we did that. Huh. Look at that. Right? So we agree that it's just the same leaf copied, and I made a little arc of them. I want you to predict what will happen with this, with, whoop, uh, you think will happen um, with the top, with the top, or what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this whole thing and I'm going to squish it, right? By squishing it, we're imagining that we're seeing it in a foreshortened angle. That top leaf that is pointing towards the ceiling, that one, actually, here's what I'll do. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change my mind of how I'm going to do this. Is this one over here? All right, yeah. So I'm going to grab this top leaf. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to squish it, whip, and predict how its shape will change. Okay. Whoops. That's not what I want to do. I want to do freeform. And here we go. That what you expected? All right. So as we do this, notice that that top edge, the point of it becomes more obtuse. It's more acute as in this long form. As it's sort of squished up and down, the top becomes more obtuse. Huh. Okay, we probably expected that. And then I am going to undo that change. Now I am going to grab it again. And this time I am going to squish it side to side. Right, I'm going to squish it top down again, up down like this, but this time it's pointing out to the side. Predict what you think will happen. Right? Okay. That's what I thought would happen too. It got long and skinny, and the tip got more pointy. All right. So the more I do that, the more pointy it gets. The less pointy, so this got more acute. All right, those two things are intuitive. Another thing that to notice is that the think of the top half of the leaf and the bottom half of the leaf on either side of that mid vein. They have stayed basically the same proportions. They both got skinny in the same way. Right? Now, let's do this with this whole crescent of leaves. And this is where things get weird. This is really fun. This gets weird because the top and the side ones are totally intuitive. What happens on these other points, remember on the top one, the vertical axis got squished. On the side one, the they both got the vertical axis, but one got, yeah, okay, let's just, enough talking, let's do. All right, here we're gonna go. We're gonna get this new group. Set this, yes. All right, we've got it selected and freeform. I am going to bring this down. I'm going to bring this up so that everybody can see it. Going to squish it. Turn it to a uniform transformation so we can just make it all bigger. And there is the weirdness. There is some real weirdness. Take a look at the tips of these things, right? Um, so if I, um, yeah, that'll work. In this one here, hey, why, oh, why are you not? These two sides are the same. So this side is the same as this side. But look at the tip down here. Look at that big side. And then, so this one is coming in steep, and then then we're seeing that all over the place. There's a big side. All right. And where do we see that the most? We see it a little bit here, not so much. We see it a little bit over here. We see it a little bit here. So it seems to be that the ones in this area and the ones in this area are the most susceptible to this weird effect. How can I kind of summarize and then um, and be able to remember that there are some leaves that are losing their symmetry side to side? Good news on this is that if you don't have to actually remember anything here. Hold on a sec. That's better. That is better. You don't have to remember anything here. You don't have to memorize some formula because if you know the right place to look on your leaf, what you can do is you can always just look back at the real leaf and say, okay, real leaf, what are you doing? What are you doing? I know that in this area there should be something weird, and maybe I've forgotten the details of which side is getting bigger, but I'm expecting you to be asymmetrical in this zone. And where are you? So here's the way that I kind of think about this myself. If this is the disc of my flower, then what I um, what I think of is an X. I want to think of an X through my flower. And on where the kind of the ends of the X are, those are the zones where things will get weird. Up at the top on the cross, right? The top, the bottom, the side, they get skinny or flattened in the way that you would totally expect. But I know at the corners of these X's, I'm going to double check those areas because I know that petal tips and leaf tips are going to get funky, right? So, um, the what's going to happen if I let's go for a different color. Um, in these areas, I'll take this one down here. There is going to be a skinny side and a wide side. The wide side is going to be towards the middle. So down on this one here, this would be my skinny side. This would be my wide side. Up in here, I'm going to have a skinny side and a wide side. And up in here, the wide sides are facing each other. The skinny sides are facing each other. So if I'm coming around and in this, let's say this corner here, right? I'm going to be drawing a petal. I'm going to expect in my head that it's going to do something like this. I'm gonna have my brain go, I'm expecting to see something like this. And then I look at the real petal and go like, are you doing it? Because sometimes the petal will be twisted, curved. Sometimes the petal wants to wonk one way and wibble another. And sometimes that, but if they are symmetrical petals, and they often are, not always, they often are, I'm going to see this effect. And that's really, really cool. Um, if I start to put these in, and this isn't just for petals, you're thinking like, I'm going to be drawing a small flowers, and then this is just like way too much. But then, are you going to be putting leaves on your plant? Okay, so any leaf that is pointing towards me to the right is going to be doing the same thing as this one. Pointing away from me to the right is going to be doing the same thing as that one. Right? So this is leaves, this is petals. And so lots of things sort of have this tape, lots of plant parts have this little tapered shape. And it just, if they are um, if they are going away from, if it is oriented at an angle so that it's not perfectly aligned with me, I will probably see some of this effect. Right. And again, if you're thinking like this is too much for me to handle, don't memorize and think that you have to follow a formula. But if you just remember in the X parts of this flower, I'm going to do a double take and not trust my intuition on what the petal should be doing because my intuition, at least mine, wants me always to make things symmetrical. But that's not what I'm going to see. And if I do this enough, then it starts to become my intuition. I get up to that corner of the flower. If I was just going to freehand something, that's probably what I would draw, right? As opposed to just making it this rounded end or this pointed end with the symmetry. So if you've looked at some of your drawings and you felt like that feels those ones that are kind of going away from me, or these ones out at the angles, if there's something odd with it, this may be that missing piece to turn your sketch around. So I am now going to undo all of these things that I changed because I think I might want to do this little demo again.
Hey, Jack,
Yes.
really quick, I wanted to let you know we are at a 15-minute time check.
All right. Great.
And so, and then someone was also asking if that app you were using is that Procreate on the iPad?
Yes, I've got a little iPad in front of me here, and this is Procreate.
Great, thank you.
So um, and so that's yeah, that's what's going on under the behind the scenes here. It's a very useful program if you do have yourself an iPad. So let's go back to this, right? And um, and let's all right. So we could um, what I'd like to do is I am going to actually because we've got 15 minutes until we do the Q&A. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Um, what I'm going to do is I am going to just first, well, just sort of explore this thing again a little bit more. Um, a few other fun things. So you can do this with, I think I've got a leaf model for everybody. If you have your own leaf model, um, where is document camera? There we go. Um, so again, if you take your leaf model and you tilt it in this axis, it behaves exactly the way you expect it to behave, right? Just note that this is becoming less obtuse. The whole thing is getting squishier. Another fun thing to notice is that look at the spacing between the veins. Isn't that interesting? And it makes sense, but I often will look at the leaf flat and then start saying like, okay, that's my spacing, my veins. Now I'm drawing them on a foreshortened leaf, and so I put them in kind of on autopilot. But yeah, it would make sense that also um, they are also getting close together. The thing that is not intuitive to me about the veins is take a look at the angle of these veins. Notice that these ones are at a steeper, more acute angle to the midvein. These ones out here are almost flat. Steep angle, almost flat. If I look at that diagrammatically, what I'm seeing is the um, as I squish that, the angle of the vein to the edge flattens. What's happening under the hood there? I've just got a rectangle with a line going from a corner to the half point and a corner to the half point. As I squish that down, you see that that line has to get forced to change its angle. That's another sort of non-intuitive thing that I can look for. And lastly, um, we looked at this. We see that. Um, Actually, I'm going to skip over these because we did this. This is the same thing which we actually did in the physical model. This is a diagram from Law's Guide to Nature Drawing and Journaling. But I think it's neat to squish it yourself and sort of see that that's actually what you're getting. And you can see the same thing if you're looking at real objects. Um, Here I have a little flower or leaf model, and I've just rotated it and squished it. And notice how things that get any leaf towards the side, the closer you get to the sides, the more symmetrical you are. The closer you are to the top or bottom, the more symmetrical you are. The closer you are to the 45s, the less symmetrical you are. This really, really helped me be able to draw my plants. So let's just look at some real examples here. Um, if I'm looking at one of these petals, I've got, I have my ellipse and I have, oh, actually I'm drawing, I've got my ellipse here and I've got my center down lower. And then let's say I'm a petal that is coming off at a 45 on it. Right? Well, gosh, now we take a closer look at it. It's coming out and it's coming out. And then it has, I'm doing one in the top right-hand corner. It's got a long side and it's got a steeper side. Huh. What about one that's coming out at an angle over here towards that 45? So the petal's coming out here, and then what's it going to do? It's going to come and it's going to have a steeper side. And then it's going to have a long side. Oh man, look at that. All right, so what about this one that's coming out up here, top right-hand corner? It has a steep side and it has a long side. Um, oh, wait a minute. No, that's just that on that one, it is because it is twisted at an angle. So always believe the pedal. So that the distortion that we're seeing up in this one is not because of that effect. Um, I'm going to go down this bottom one, bottom the lowest one over in this corner of it. There's a petal that's sticking out. Comes out, boonk, and boonk. So knowing that, I can have a lot of fun. And then you get into things with all sorts of crazy wobbles. And you're thinking, all of this symmetry, these things that I was working on, I was kind of getting these things down. And now I've got all of these petals that are twisting and curling. Um, I wanted to show you a way I think about this twisting and curling stuff that makes it much easier, right? So a great way to think about this is with a leaf. And let's see, where's a paper leaf? There's a paper leaf. I am going to actually first we'll start with a document camera view. All right. I've got a leaf. I've got a leaf here. And if you take the leaf and you just do this with your fingers, you can put a curl into your leaf. Now, as I hold it at an angle, I can see part of the top and the bottom side of my leaf. Or petal. So How do you handle these things? Because you'll be seeing this a lot. For me, the easiest way to do is to do this. Hold on there. For me, the easiest way to do this is to look at this triangle on the top of the leaf as a shape, as a shape. And um, that means that I'm seeing something that is going to come. It has a flat top. It has a short curved side. And then it has a long arch. And I've roughly got a triangle like that. Then what I do is I think to myself, that's attached to a shape on the bottom. And what is that shape? It's something that has a long curved side here. The long curve shape there. And that curve comes around and it goes straight. I like to think of behind the scenes this corner here where I lose sight of this edge here. I lose sight of it here and I lose sight of it here. Behind the scenes here, between here and here, these two do have to meet. So it's probably doing something like this behind the scenes. So I have one edge that is doing this, just a big old curve. I have this other edge that is hooking around more steeply. There's a top part to it, and that gives me this upper triangle. Thinking about this thing connecting with that corner helps me not do this. See how that little rascal would have a hard time getting up to there? So as I'm kind of coming around with this side, I want to be targeting up in here. We're gonna somehow has to get up in there in a reasonable way. So when I'm looking at shapes, I will attach that to my bottom shape. And then my top shape in here. And then I sort of find the through line with this that links this top shape with this bottom shape. And does the through line here make sense? That is, then you just turn this from to a different position and you get a different shape, right? Yeah, you just but it's this the same thing. It's just the same thing. Let's do that. There's what is my top shape? Top shape kind of comes in, kind of has a curve here. Top shape is doing something like that. And then the bottom shape, it is going. I'll link those up. And I've got my little pincher in the wrong place. So what is that other side doing? It was something like that. Okay. So that side there just is going to loop around. And then I have the underside of my leaf, and I have the top side of my leaf. Let's go back to our friend the iris and see what we can do. Um, well, actually, so here's just sort of diagramming of this. Um, I'm just thinking of the top shape and a bottom shape. I stick them together, and I've got the basics of my leaf. You want to look out for places where through lines don't meet, and that could be the mid vein or that side vein. So I'm paying attention to how those through lines, where I don't see the full line, come in. And then there's this isn't just a leaf thing. We're going to find all sorts of curling petals. So those petals on the side, I'm building them up by a top shape next to a bottom shape, and then reinforcing that through line. And that gives me the shapes that I see. So if I am going to just a time check, how many minutes?
Well, we're kind of at the Q&A point, but I think people are interested in this. As you're going over these flowers, if maybe you could add a note about differences between drawing leaves and petals that you might want to be keeping in mind.
Um, as far as the geometry of these things goes, um, I would as far as the geometry of it goes, I would it's the same tricks, right? It's the same tricks whether you are drawing a leaf or a petal. Um, there is no difference. You're going to see these things that are kind of going out on the corners of the X's. They're going to be doing that asymmetry. For the things that um, uh, are straight, you're going to those are going to be um, foreshortening in much more predictable ways. Um, so what I um, what I'm going to do here, I thought I actually had this one set up so that I could see it and my paper at the same time, but that's okay. Um, so I guess what I'd like to do is I'm going to make one last sort of theoretical diagram, and I will show you Keynote. Docam. There we go. So on drawing something like that tiger lily, what my approach would probably be is I would start by just giving myself a ball, saying that I had a flower that was coming down here, and there was something that was coming down in that. My little flower came down, and there was an inner cone, and it was facing away from me. And then these little petals were arching up off of that. And there was one petal that I think it was somewhere in here, came up. There was another petal that was it was coming up somewhere in. There were other ones that were tucked behind them. But just from what I'm going to do is just sort of to sort of see how much what I would expect to see now. So this little petal that is coming up towards me, um, I am expecting it to Here's the shape of the side that is facing towards me. On the other side, there was another petal that was sticking up. And those are there were other petals that were stuck in behind it. There were other petals that were kind of just in there blocked. I'm maybe something like that. And in the very background, there were other petals that were back there. So maybe there's one that is coming up somewhere in here, trying to avoid a little adjacency. So maybe there's another petal curling up there. There's another petal that would be curling up. Maybe it's in here. I'm going to actually have this one curl back towards us even more. Don't know if it was. Maybe it's got its little top. So what I've got is a mental model of how these things should be that is a little bit more accurate. There then were stamen that were sticking out, right? There were stamen that were coming out here. And if this cone is this side here is the side that is towards me, those stamen that are sticking out underneath it are also going to be in a cone, in an ellipse, which means that they're going to be maybe something like that. Want to go back and see that picture again? Ah, yeah. So my mental model is a little bit more useful now. Oh, and I missed its pistil entirely. Um, I've got petals doing asymmetrical things on different sides. I have shapes that I can kind of pile up in front of each other. I can think of this as a shape. I can think of this as a shape of these sort of faces of petals. Um, and I can use those together to help me be able to draw what I see. When I'm out there in the field, the petals that I see always have the right answer. And so if you don't know what to do on a petal, just look at it. Just remember the X's are going to have some special fun things for you to kind of double check. Um, the more you just mess around and draw you some flowers, then the better and better this is going to start to work for you. What we have to do is be willing to make some sort of sacrifice pancakes. If you make pancakes, the first ones off the griddle, they come out kind of funky. And it's the same with drawings. And so do some studies and think of them just as studies instead of having to get it right from the start. Think of them as studies. You play with it and it will work. Um, the last part of it is you deserve some flowers. If there aren't wildflowers near you, um, you have earned going to the grocery store and buying yourself a bouquet of flowers. And if you can go out and look at ones that are already wildflowers that are already popping up, that's great. If they're not popping up near you, if you are in a place that is still under some snow, go get yourself some flowers and put them in a little vase. And you deserve it. And just think of them as studies. Play with those, mess around with those. By the time that they have all wilted, there may be some other ones starting to grow in fields near you.
Thank you so much, Jack. What a wonderful class.
But
Really,
this
really
this
enjoyed
one
it.
had some more tech challenges. I just want to let everybody know that behind the scenes, Kate, thank you, Kate, and Beth, thank you, Kate. They helped me kind of make sure everything was working, and then sort of the last minute, I was there like, I'm going to try to get this draw on your screen function going, and that's I think why I had all of my password keeper blocking my face. Apologize for those tech inconveniences, but I hope that there are some useful strategies in here that will help you with your drawings.
For sure. This was so helpful and so fun, Jack. Thank you so much. I just want to say a big thank you also to Kate Ryder for helping out backstage, for helping us keep time. That's one of the most challenging things for Jack because really, I'm sure you could teach flower drawing for 24 hours, in fact, instead of just 2 hours. We want to just say thank you again to Jack for volunteering your time to teach this class, and thank you to everyone who came. This was one of the most popular classes we've ever offered, so that's really exciting. And if you have not made a donation to Wild Wonder for this class and you would like to and you are able to, you can do that at wildwonder.org/donate. We welcome your support and we try to turn around and turn those donations into more free resources for you, more free classes and things just like this. I also want to encourage you to check out our events page. That's at wildwonder.org/events. We have lots of fun classes like this, online classes, and also in-person gatherings coming up all the time. So please check that out. Also, our video pass is on sale right now from our last conference, so you can check that out on our website as well. It's 30 classes like this one for a very low price. So please check that out. And thank you again for all of your support. We will be emailing the recording to everyone who registered in about 10 days. And we'd love to see your notes from class. So share them out on social media at #WildWonder Foundation and also tag Jack at John Muir Laws. And Jack, do you have any homework for everyone? I know people love homework and you were kind of saying that a little bit in your closing remarks, but I know people really love getting an assignment from you since you are the Nature Journal community is one of our best loved teachers. We love all our teachers, but we love hearing your assignments and we are all good students and want to do what you challenge us to do. So what is your nature journaling homework or challenge for us today?
So first, just a quick note about the donations. If you're not able to make a donation, we don't want you to feel that that's something that you should have done and feel weird about that. We want you coming to every class that we can. And if that doesn't work with your budget at this time, what we encourage you to do is an act of kindness in your community, or maybe an act of nature stewardship that otherwise might not have happened, and just make the world a little bit better. And if we're all doing that, we have a huge impact. Here's your homework. It's going to involve flowers. So again, if you don't have any popping up near you, you deserve some flowers. So go get yourself some flowers and kind of sit there like, oh, that would be a fun one. That would be a fun one. And just think of them as studies. And um, what I'd love you to do is 10 little flower studies from different angles, play with it, and see what happens. See if you can get yourself to see some of these effects, some of these foreshortening effects. So, try it from a weird view, or ones where there's a petal that's twisted in a weird way. Like if and think of like, okay, I'm not going to be frightened of the weird twisting petal. I'm gonna do, by the time you get to number 10, Number one is the hardest because number one, all of your inner critic is just up in your business. By the time you get to, but just tell your inner critic that these are just studies. This is practice for the next one and practice for the next one. These don't have to be finished drawings. Think of them like what part is really interesting to you and really work on that part. And if there's part that's not interesting to you, you don't have to draw that part of the flower. But give yourself 10, give yourself a break, make some tea, and see if you can put some of these ideas to use. And if you put pencil to paper with these thoughts, and here's the challenge. Maybe I should put a time limit on this because if in the next day or two, if you don't use these ideas, it's going to be really easy for your brain just to erase those new thoughts. But while they're fresh in your head, kind of mess with them. Don't do all 10 at once. Come back to it a little bit later, do a couple more. Come back to it later, do a couple more. And that sort of periodic, like, well, I'm going to revisit it again. I'm going to revisit it again. And each time you're trying to get your brain to remember, like, oh yeah, I've got tricks for that. See what happens. Got a couple of days, 10 pictures, and we'll see what happens.
You can do this.
You
And
can do this.
I love how when you were teaching earlier, you were talking about if I forget how it's supposed to look, then I just look at the plant.
Yeah.
Trust
So
the flower.
when the plant and your theory of what it should be doing disagree,
Yeah.
believe the plant.
I love that. I love that. And I really enjoyed the way you used your helping hands to twist it and help our brains point out those places where our brain is going to tell us something different than what's actually happening.
Isn't that fun?
It's so fun. Yeah.
Sort of the way I intuit the way the world should be
Yes.
is different. Like before people like came up with like 3-point perspective, everybody would have these flat drawings and we were visualizing it that way. And then somebody was going like, wait, that's really not what we're seeing. And then we kind of came up with a system like, oh, look for these sort of things. And it got a lot easier. And this is just the same way.
Yeah.
You've got a few of these strategies. It'll make it easier. And you can make those, and then those non-intuitive things start to become more intuitive.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you again, Jack, for your wonderful teaching and for volunteering your time to support Wild Wonder Foundation. Also in the comments, there's floods of love for you. Big thanks. Oh. Learned so much. And some people heard that it's almost your birthday. Jack has a big birthday coming up. So if you go to wildwonder.org/events, you'll see we're having a birthday party for Jack. And guess what Jack wants to do for his birthday? He wants to teach a class. Are you surprised? I'm not surprised. So anyway, you can join us for that class. And if you're watching this recording later, that class will also be recorded, so you can find it on our website. But we want to wish you a big happy birthday, Jack, early. And thanks to everyone for being here. And we hope to see you at another event soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Be kind.